All right, let's get right into it. Today we are breaking down the 2009 action spectacle Ninja Assassin. Now this film was produced by the very same people who gave us The Matrix, so you know it's famous for that hyper-stylized violence. But trust me, behind all the blood and blades, there's a really fascinating story here about filmmaking and, a bit of cultural nostalgia.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start by looking past all the crazy action. Then we'll dive into the main conflict, unpack the tricks the filmmakers used, put the movie into a bigger historical context, and finally, we're going to ask, is this thing really new, or is it just an old story with a fresh coat of paint?
Okay, so when you think of Ninja Assassin, your mind probably jumps straight to one thing: insane, over-the-top action. And look, you're not wrong. The movie is an absolute visual feast, and it's built from the ground up to get your adrenaline pumping. I mean, the producers, the Wachowskis, they're absolute masters of visual spectacle. And with this film, they knew exactly what the audience wanted. Jaw-dropping martial arts set against this mysterious, almost mythical backdrop. But that's really only scratching the surface.
The analysis we're digging into today argues that this movie takes a pretty simple story, a hero fighting for what's right, and somehow turns it into something totally hypnotic. So what's the secret sauce? What makes it more than just another action flick? Well, that's exactly what we're here to figure out.
At its heart, this whole film is about one lone hero, Rizzo, going up against the very organization that made him who he is. It's a classic story of betrayal, sure, but it's the twisted nature of this so-called family that makes it all so interesting.
So meet the bad guys, the Azunu clan. They go around scooping up orphans, giving them food, a roof over their heads, but it's all for one single purpose: to train them into these perfect, emotionless killing machines. These guys are basically the boogeymen of the entire political underworld.
And this right here, this just lays out this central conflict perfectly. Rizzo's betrayal isn't just him running away, it's framed as this grand fight for justice for humanity. The movie paints the Azunu as so completely evil that Rizzo's rebellion becomes this moral duty. It turns the traitor into a hero.
This quote absolutely nails the clan's hypocrisy. You've got the boss, constantly preaching about this unbreakable family bond, where betrayal means death, but it's all a sham. The whole family thing is just a business model. It's a tool to keep everyone in line.
So the key takeaway here is that there's no actual love. There's no affection. Members are expected to be ruthless, to compete with each other constantly. Their bond isn't built on warmth. It's forged in cruelty and this unshakable loyalty to the business. And once you get that, you get exactly why Rizzo had to get out.
Okay, so we've got this story of betrayal. How does it actually come to life on screen? Well, let's pop the hood and look at the filmmaker's toolkit. They take this classic plot and make it feel super intense and engaging, and they do it with a couple of really key cinematic tricks.
So, think about it. How do you make a story we've all kind of heard before feel fresh and exciting? Well, in this case, it's all about how you tell it. The director uses two really powerful techniques that play with time and motion to keep us glued to the screen.
First off, they just smash the timeline to pieces. The movie is constantly jumping back and forth between what's happening now and Rizzo's past. The present-day stuff gives us all that spectacular action we paid to see, while the flashbacks slowly, piece by piece, reveal the brutal training and the trauma that's driving him.
And this non-linear thing isn't just a gimmick, It actually turns the whole experience into a kind of puzzle. We, the audience, have to put together Rizzo's memories to really get why he's on this bloody rampage in the present. It's a clever way to build suspense and give the character more depth.
The second big tool is, of course, slow motion. A lot of the action is just too fast for the human eye to even process. So the camera slows it all down. This lets us appreciate the almost surreal, inhuman skill of these ninjas, and, maybe more importantly, it lets us really soak in the powerful, athletic movements of our hero, Rizzo.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. Ninja Assassin didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's actually part of a long tradition in Hollywood. And that tradition carries with it a ton of cultural history and a really powerful sense of nostalgia.
See, this movie is tapping into a formula that has worked for decades. You've got the mythical Asian hero, unbelievable fighting skills, and this cool exotic sense of mystery. But that entire legacy, that whole genre, can pretty much be traced back to a single iconic person.
Yep, Bruce Lee. The Wachowskis have said they're massive fans, and they're part of a whole generation of filmmakers and fans who have this never-ending nostalgia for the martial arts movies that he made famous back in the 70s. Ninja Assassin is a direct descendant of that legacy.
And it follows that formula to a T. You've got an Asian hero with these almost supernatural fighting abilities, and the whole thing is packaged to appeal directly to that specific nostalgia for the golden age of kung fu movies.
But here's the twist. Relying on that legacy, it's kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gives the film a built-in audience and a familiar vibe that people love. But on the other, it makes you wonder if it's really bringing anything new to the conversation.
And that brings us to our final section, and really the main critique of the film. With all its modern special effects and technical skill, is Ninja Assassin just telling us a story that we've already heard 100 times before?
So here's the breakdown. On the one hand, technically, the film is a marvel. The effects are incredible, and the action is super satisfying. But on the other hand, it leans pretty heavily on a familiar, kind of generic Asian mystique, and it ends up feeling culturally, well, ambiguous. So what does culturally ambiguous even mean? Well, the source material points out that even though the star, Rain, is Korean, which was a huge deal in Korea, a point of national pride, his specific culture doesn't matter to the film at all. It's just a mashup of vaguely Asian ideas, mostly with a Japanese flavor, that creates this generic pan-Asian feel.
And that's the bottom line right there. The filmmaking techniques are absolutely cutting edge. The slow motion, the editing, the CGI, it's all light years beyond what they could do in the Bruce Lee days. But the core idea it's selling, this exotic, mysterious Asian warrior, that hasn't changed a bit.
And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. Is a movie like Ninja Assassin the future of the genre? Is it a technical evolution? Or is it just proof that the martial arts film, for all its flashy new tricks, is still just chasing the ghosts of its own past? It's definitely something to think about.